Okay, so we're going to start by sitting, and any comfortable sitting position, whatever you've got around, will be fine. And you can either here use a light weight in the hand, or if you don't have one of those available, but you do have a yoga block, fantastic. If neither of those things, do you have some sort of small handheld object that you can just occupy your hand for a few moments? What we're going to do here is pick up that weight or object in the right hand with the right elbow bent and beside the rib cage. Remember, the premise of all of this is plank, right? So when we do that low plank position, for many of us, it's attainable to have the elbow beside the waist. And that's what we're going to work with here, just to kind of like prepare the setup for strengthening. What we're going to work on here is external rotation. So you're going to swing that forearm out to the side and then let it come back in. And we're going to do this repeatedly a few times so there isn't a next movement coming, but there is a next refinement coming. So as you go through these, take your left hand and reach over. So you kind of got your hand on the top of that right shoulder blade. Now, if you press in and you use your fingertips to kind of hang on tight to that, you'll likely feel on the back of the shoulder blade different muscles turning on and off as you go through this little range and strengthening action. But what I'd like you to perceive here is that while you swing this arm in and out 10,000 more times, that the right shoulder blade itself is not in action. So what would be common is the arm comes out to the side and the shoulder blade pinches back or lifts up. And then when we bring that arm forward, we would dump the shoulder blade down and bring it forward. So what I want you to find here is that from start to finish, from swinging the arm in to out, that the shoulder blade does not move, but lots of stuff on top of the shoulder blade. Hold on to keep it stabilized while mobilizing the upper arm. Oh, if I had my 3-pounders here, I would have used those instead. All right, let's do the other side. Recross your legs if you've been sitting cross-legged. Again, as you get going with this, that left elbow stays pinned to your side. So you don't want to put it back or in front, nor is it kind of off the side body. But again, think plank pose as sort of the premise for this. And then as that left arm swings in and out, again, I'm keeping it close to my waist. I'm going to take that right hand and hold over my shoulder blade. And I've got a good grip, like I'm putting my fingertips in there. And as I have that hold, I want to make sure that the shoulder blade itself is not lifting up and in, nor is it dropping wide and out. So from start to finish on internal to external rotation, your scap itself is stabilized on your back. That is one of the key components in my book for doing that high to low plank position. You know, we call it plank pose or Chaturanga Dandasana. We give it its Sanskrit name. Any other person on the planet seeing you do this would say, oh, that person's doing a tricep push-up. So we fancy it up with a nickname and some Sanskrit. But if you divorced it from the yoga, it would be just a tricep push-up. That's all it is, just a tricep push-up. They're hard. All right, let's go ahead and place that weight out of the way for the moment. And go unweighted, both hands a few times here. And without that one hand to hold on and without the weight, it's just a different exercise, but really the same idea. As those arms come apart, try not to elevate or pinch the shoulder blades in. And as those forearms come towards each other, maybe even tapping pinky fingers, you don't want to feel like that's when you drop and pull the shoulder blades forward. So a few of these, keeping the scaps stabilized, but my arm, of course, going through this big range of motion. Hang out at that wide position for a moment. And as you're here, could you put your attention into your back body and try to push the shoulder blades more broadly apart while those arms try to go back. So I'm trying to send my thumbs towards that green wall behind me. All right, and then we'll release. So a weight again, if not an actual weight, what about a water bottle, something else you could hold in your hand? I'll turn my back to you as we set this up. We're going to work here. I might go a little off camera with my arm overhead, but there's nothing going on there too interesting. I'm going to take the weight into my right arm, and my fist is just pointing right up towards the ceiling with the weight being held across my hand. And then from here, I'm going to bend into the elbow, and I'm going to go to the end range of motion and see if that weight can tap my shoulder blade, just so I get a sense of where it ended up. And then I'm going to go back to a straight armed position. So we'll do a few of these. I'll count these off in just a second. So we'll do a set of 10. Just let me spit out the instructions one more time. As you have this, the goal is not to lower the arm in order to get the weight to the shoulder. So if you're up, and most of my arm is off screen, but here comes my weight and my elbow, I don't want to lower down to get the weight to my shoulder. So if my end range of motion, change the camera angle a little bit, is smaller, but it's more accurate to the tricep, that'll be helpful. So I might not actually drop the weight to my shoulder. I might stay in the mid-range if otherwise I have to do that action. So this is an awesome bit of work, like a press up, but we're going to work here on a tricep action. So we're going to go from straight to bent. Let's go for 10. Hope you didn't do too many already. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, to our last one, hold down, come up halfway. So now my knuckles are just facing to that green wall behind me. I want to make sure my elbow isn't coming out wide or forward or down. And then slowly all the way back up to the top. All right, let's do the other side of that. So get a couple done, just getting the lay of the land. So I've got my weight kind of going across my hand. And the first action is that press up, which is fun. We'll save that for another day. That'll be a handstand exercise. And then just do a couple to kind of figure out where the end range of motion is. And if in doing so, if you have to lower your elbow down to lower the weight down, then stop yourself before that has to happen. Like you could end here if otherwise you had to go here. So basically, let me say it more succinctly, this upper arm bone stays in one position during the whole exercise. So that's the thought. All right, so that's my last try it on for size version. Here we go, let's go 10 and push up. 9 to up, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, we're going pretty slow, 2, and then we're going to come on down into this last one. And again, pause. If that arm is falling forward, push it up. We're trying to get this tricep into a position where it has to go really long as it's holding strength, and then go to your mid-range. The mid-range is always the worst. We're going to hold here for a breath or two. And then from here, keeping that upper arm pointing up, wow, push to the top of that action. Let's go ahead and set this down. So that's just straight from the book of Strength and Conditioning. Do those more often than the set that we just did, and you will absolutely be improving that high to low plank action, because it's mostly about that tricep control when you're bending your elbows. Okay, so let's come on to a quadruped position. You can set here anything you've been sitting on aside. And we're going to start with that basic quadruped position, turn it into a quadruped plank version. So you're going to walk your knees back, and then we're going to come on to our elbows and knees. And now that you know that that's where we're headed, you might have just kind of tumbled down to the floor. But what I'd like you to do is to go in really slowly. So pick up your left hand off the floor, and then bend your right elbow until your left elbow gets down. And then you're going to come out of that. So you're going to push into your right hand to lift the entirety of that left forearm from the floor, and then come back onto the left hand. So we're taking it apart, we're slowing it down. Left hand stays in place, right hand comes off the floor, and you're going to bend that left elbow until your right elbow comes down, and then you got to get on out of it. You're going to push that left hand down, and take the right arm up, and then back to all fours. Then we are just going to come on down to our elbows. Let me change that angle one more time. Make sure that the good stuff stays on camera. Okay, so as you're on both elbows, let's lace the fingers together as we would for a headstand. And when you start this off again, you might reconsider, now that you're on your elbows, does that change things in your proportions where you actually want your knees further back? That's a pretty common shift for a lot of people. So don't hesitate just to lengthen out the pose once more. We'll lace the fingers, as I mentioned, and you're going to have the elbows underneath the shoulders. Now from here, you might feel like you end up like sliding and rocking on your knees a little bit. And if that doesn't feel good, do this with the legs straight, it's harder. But you can also use some padding underneath your knees, as I am right here. Okay, so the job you got here is to bend your elbows deeper by leaning forward, almost like your chin would come ahead of your knuckles, and then push into your elbows so those arms come straighter. So two things are happening. I'm bending into my arms, I'm kind of dragging my arms back in order to do that, and then I'm pushing back. Now, because I do have my knees on the floor for the first couple, I do have to drag myself forward. You kind of see how I slide on my mat. So my toes are assisting. Let's do a couple more. If you're on a surface that's no good for dragging your kneecaps, legs could be straight. All right, one more time forward. Woo, one more time back. Begin to move your hips back and then unlace your fingers. Press your right forearm to come onto your left hand. Press your left hand to come onto your right hand. So you cleanly crawl yourself up out of it. Okay, so from that, we're going to come back down onto the elbows and knees and try a second set with the knees uplifted. If you didn't do that the first time around, here it is. So let's see, let's go ahead here, press the left hand, take the right hand off the floor, bend that left elbow until your right elbow comes down, and then bring your left elbow down. Then again, lace your fingers, think about the opposite interlace from what you did before. Push the elbows to the ground, and then here's the difference. We're gonna try it with straight legs. So again, your toes participate in this. So push off your toes, bend your elbows, come forward, and then pull back. 1, forward, back 2, forward, back 3, forward, back 4, forward, back 5. And let's go ahead and bring the knees on down. Take a breath or two. Roll the shoulders, shake it out. I was gonna say we can do this wrist relief, but we haven't been on the hands for the last couple moments. So we'll skip that and think about the shoulders rolling around a couple times. All right, one more set of those, one more set of those. So let's go ahead and come to all fours, walk your knees back. Here, you're going to press your left hand down. Is that the side we just did? Well, we'll try that. Left hand presses down, bend the left elbow until the right elbow comes to the floor, then put the left elbow to the floor. I think that's the side we just did. Whatever, you can do another one later on today. We'll interlace the fingers. And again, knees up or knees down. Let's do a third and final set of these forward to back motions. So I'm gonna go with legs straight. We're gonna do 5. They're tough, here they come. You do push from your toes. If your knees are on the ground, they do kind of roll forward and back. So push the toes, come forward, 1 and back, forward 2 and back, forward 3 and back, forward 4 and back, forward 5 and back, and then knees come on down. We're gonna take a couple of breaths. All right, so we're gonna look a little bit more directly at that action of straight arm to bent elbow, high to low plank, to most people in the world, a tricep push-up. So we're gonna try it from our knees first, because that's gonna be kind of like a step into an idea of progression. If you're going to be on your elbows, you'll essentially be doing what we were just doing, which is bending the elbows deeper. But if you're gonna be on your hands, you go from straight arms to bent elbows. Kind of naming it, though I'm sure we all know it. Mostly I'm just talking to give myself a break. All right, so we're gonna come onto our all fours. Spread fingers. Now we have this idea on the first of these 30-minute classes that we have sort of a standard master list of alignment points. They're very adaptable, but the ones we kind of start off with are sort of the basics. So we're going to go to that here and have the wrists underneath the shoulders and turn your inner elbows to face forward. So what makes it a tricep push-up versus the regular typical push-up from the fitness world is that your elbows bend back, right? In a typical push-up, your hands are wider and your elbows point out. And don't worry, we'll do a few of those today, but we're going to start here with the framework of a plank in mind. So when your inner elbows are facing forward, it'll mean that you'll have a better chance of getting those elbows to point back. So if you start off here and your inner elbows face each other, if you bend your elbows, they go to the side. Try that for a moment. And you don't have to go very far down, but try that elbow bend and just kind of stay there for a breath or two. What do you feel in there? Well, I feel my pecs quite a bit. And then push your arms to straighten, turn the inner elbows forward. Knees are down and knees were behind the hips if I didn't get around to saying that yet. And then from here, we won't hold it forever and ever, but take some amount of an elbow bend and then drop your head to look. Well, no surprise to me, my weaker left arm is kind of swinging out to the side. So I'm going to hold that left arm in a little bit. As you're looking at this, can you create a matching pair? Elbows are bent some amount, right? And then straighten them off. Take a breath, stretch on back, take the weight off the hands for a moment. It could be a child's pose. It could be a puppy stretch. It could be any darn thing where you reduce the weight on the hands and wrists by means of giving the arm strength a break. But let's get back at it. All right, so knees are behind the hips. And as you're in this, I want you to push your hands down, inner elbows face forward, and we're gonna do a set of 10. Now, you don't have to come down to that like 90-degree bend. It might not even work in your body to do that strength-wise or structurally. So just do 10 where the elbows bend and then they straighten. That's all it's gotta be. And we're gonna go for the elbows pointing back. Here is 10, up, 9, up, 8, come on up, 7, up, 6, up, 5, back to straight arms, 4, 3, oh my gosh, 2, and then that last one, and then come on up. All right, that happens everywhere in the shoulders. So biceps, triceps, delts, a lot of stuff going on there. All right, so I want to show a couple of different things where we can use external props to kind of assist us in like a training ground. And I want to start with like the Cadillac version. So like the fluffiest, most luxurious one. And this is the one I might just be making a demo of if you don't have a lot of stuff around. You know me, I am always like, no, you won't really need a prop. And then it's like, actually, you needed 3 bolsters for this. So I'm going to take a single bolster. I'm going to make it a taller object by layering some blanket onto this. If you have similar objects nearby, give it a shot. Otherwise, I won't beleaguer this one. I'll just show you. And if you're like, I lost my momentum, just strap and give me 50. But what you'll do here is bring this long object that you can build up some height with it underneath a knee down plank. And then from this, what you're going to endeavor to do is to bend the elbows so that you let your torso come to this. And you can see once I'm there, it's like, it's just holding me up. You can bring your whole torso to this kind of in one piece. And then from this, can you lift, you know, chest and navel and pelvic area all at once as you come back up. So I'm gonna shoot here for 5 of these, knowing that not everyone has this set up. So elbows bend, I touch down, hands press, I come back up. And as we go through 4, this is kind of the best one. So if you can make it work, join me. 3, 2, and this one is really informative for me about what parts land first. Like I see a lot of people do like pelvis, rib cage, heart, nose. And when you have something that's just right there, it's kind of like you land in one shebang. All right, so have that in mind. If you do the replay of this later and you can get your stuff, try it because it's kind of the best one. Right, so thank you for your service, Bolster. So let's look at a couple others that add like stops to this so that we don't feel like it's either I'm crashing down, or I can only bend my elbow that much, because that is a strengthening move, but eventually, right, we want those elbows to bend deeper. 2 blocks, please and thank you. I'm a taller person, so these will be on their tall ends. If you are more petite, you might try them on a lower side, but I think for most people, this is a good entry point. So I'm gonna set my hands directly behind these. So like my middle fingers are right at the side and edge. I'm gonna walk my knees back. And then as you come into this, you gotta be strong and not crash. You're going to bend your elbows to touch the blocks. And I'll pause here for the first one, because again, this is kind of nice. And as I'm holding this, I can see my inclination, which is to kind of sway my back. So I'm gonna let my tailbone come under a little bit and lift my ribs a lot. And then from there, it's nice to catch sight of myself in the middle of it. I'm gonna straighten my arms and come back up. All right, so let's do a set of these. I'm hoping you've got a pair of blocks. This can be a knee down position. If you wanna try like 1 or 2 with the legs straight, I think that's pretty good. Let's do 10. So tap 1, tap 2, tap 3. I am going to be sore tomorrow. 4, coming up. 5, halfway there. Losing the core a little bit here. 6, tap down, come up. 7, 8. Oh my gosh, I'm stuck on number 8. Only got 2 more to do. Get on up. 9. Ugh. And then last one to 10. And can she get on up? I'm going to stay here for a second. I'm going to let my tailbone come under a little bit, hold my ribs off the floor, hands push. Ugh, up I go. All right, let's go ahead and sit back from there. So when you get into doing these with a little bit more specificity, like if you're not just kind of high plank, dropping to the floor, lifting the chin, it's kind of an up dog, it's more like a cobra. If you're really going into this as like the action itself, you only have a couple of them in you, right? Like you don't have infinite numbers of these. So it's good to know your limit. I'm doing them in sets of 10 just because. Let's try that a different way. So these 2 blocks, and then you're going to stack them at the center of your mat. And I think I'll start here. So like 1 flat block, 1 medium block. I don't think anyone will need to do that, but that's cool if you do want to. And then same thought, this one, I'm gonna try to be straight legged for at least 1 or 2 of them. So when you come onto these blocks, gotta get friendly with it, because it's gonna be around the top chest. And if you're bustier or just more sensitive on the chest, you might skip this one or see if you can wrestle up a few of those softer props. So I'm thinking about letting this come towards the top of my sternum. So if you're busty and higher with your bust, you might feel like you're bumping into it with breast material. I'll let you figure out if it's workable for you. So hands out to the sides, knees are gonna go back. I think I better do the first one with my legs straight or they're never coming off the ground. So here, as you tap down, it's with your sternum. 1, I did it. Did anybody see it? 2, second one, 3, 4, 5, all right, knees down. 6, 7, 8, 9, elbows are pointing back, and 10. And then come on up, take a pause. We're gonna do a second set. On this next set, instead of it being planky yoga, chaturanga dandasana, we're gonna go wider, elbows out, and hands might turn in a little bit. So it's very different on the chest and arms. It tends to be a little bit more reliant on the pecs, which I'm all for. So I'm gonna keep the same height. It was working. I'll give that a go. When you come back up, walk those hands out. Now, if you don't typically do a push-up, you're gonna feel very out of place in it because you've gotten really adapted to like a yoga movement. They're not inherently unsafe, but if you feel that they are bad news for your shoulder, I couldn't argue with that. So my hands are wider. I'm gonna give you a trial run. Like, can I bend my elbows to the side? I want my hands out a little bit wider. And then I think I'm just gonna turn them in a little bit. Like I can't even say it's much, it's just a couple of degrees. And then I'm gonna give another trial run here. Well, the blocks feel low. I'll report that to you. All right, let's try a typical push-up setup. Your knees can be on the ground. They can be behind the hips, and you'd be doing the same thing. Otherwise, you might try a couple with those legs lifted. So bend the elbows to the sides, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. All right, knees down, and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10. All right, let's set those blocks out to the side. So visit an actual push-up from time to time. If you're wondering, how do I get my plank stronger? Go to actual push-ups. You will see that they're a little different. All right, so thank you, blocks. What else did I want to show you? I want to give you a last one, and this one too, I've heard from people who are chesty and busty, they just don't like it. So this is for people who can put up with it. So I have a strap, and it's going to go above my upper arms. This is a fairly narrow strap. So if I had my preference, I would have grabbed a wider one from the studio if I'd remembered I was teaching this one. So wider ones are kind of nicer, but these buckles are necessary. So if your buckle slips around a little bit, it won't feel very secure when you try this. And when you come to this, you've got a couple of options, a few options that I really love, actually. So let's just come onto hands and knees. You're going to push your arms out wide to the side, straight arms. And then I'm going to look at my inner elbows and see if I can get both of my inner elbows to face forward. Right arm. Why so slow? I'm going to tighten this up just a wee bit. And that right there, hands on the floor, arms at shoulders width distance, elbows straight, inner elbows looking ahead, and pressing your upper arms out to the sides. That is awesome. That can be its own preparation. I hope you guys feel that. Yesterday, we did a ton regarding scapular position with the rhomboids, like how close they pinch together, how far they pull apart. We'll come to the top of your rhomboid push-up, like make your upper back massively wide and broad and push those upper arms outwards. All right, that's a good one, yeah? Let's move the knees back, and let's just do a couple here with the knees on down. So as you bend your elbows, your chest ends up kind of in the sling of that strap. So that's where people feel like, no, I don't like it. So then push yourself off, and let's do a couple. So this is acting like a little bit of a brace. It's acting almost like an external pair of like rear deltoids, like it's pushing your arms apart. And we'll do a couple more. Ugh. I guess I'm getting fatigued. I guess we did a lot of push-ups today. Let's go ahead and take a pause. I'm going to try a few with my legs straight. I might just end up laughing, but I'm going to give it a second. All right, shoulders over wrists, inner elbows forward. I'm pushing my arms wider apart. I'm doing that partially because these like serratus muscles in my underarms, those have grabbed the shoulder blades and they're prying them wide. But then I'm also thinking about the back of my upper arm and shoulder kind of flying open, like the hands would fly apart off the floor, but I've strapped them together. So they're being held there. And then let's go with straight legs. Might as well give it a shot. Oh, here's one and two. Ooh, and three. Oh, knees down, and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7, 8, ooh, 9. I have to say, they're getting a little sloppy for me on these last couple, and 10. Oh, I'm gonna pause for a second, widen my shoulder blades, hug my elbows in, and then lift all the way on off. All right, sit on back, take a seat. All right, a couple of our ones that we've been doing lately. Loose interlaced fingers, vertical forearms, and then just kind of like swinging those wrists around. And you can go in one direction, then the other. That's one. The other good one is some wrist flexion. Take us out of all that wrist extension. Then we bring the fingertips just past each other, corners of the thumbs together. We think about drawing that down. So that's 2. You might have a favorite amongst these. My favorite is active range of motion, active wrist extension. So I bring my forearms together. If your elbows don't touch, no worries, but the heels of your hands will. And then I work to bring those palms to face up towards the ceiling, right? So it's like your hands fly apart. That's a third one. The other good one I'm loving these days, making little bird beaks out of your hands. So pinching fingers and thumbs together, arms reach down, and then a strong internal rotation. So usually in yoga, everything is external. Here, you're gonna turn in, turn in, turn in, flex the wrists a little bit like you're tucking your fingers towards the ceiling, and then that lift to the side. Oh, you can see how asymmetrical that makes my left arm. Oof. So we got a few wrist relievers. And we did so many push-ups. Right. I hope these are working well for you.